Yeah, frustrated, but I get it. You know, got to score, got to be in games.
Tim came in. He was decisive. Got rid of the ball. He did some good things.
Who's your quarterback moving forward?
We're gonna watch the tape and we'll make a decision tomorrow.
As far as storylines go, one of the craziest ones that we've been covering on this channel is the storyline of who the New York Jets starting quarterback should be, or will be, or has been. It's a storyline that we've been covering since this channel's inception in 2020. And it seems like we got a brand new answer on Sunday, at least in regards to Zach Wilson. This is without a doubt the end of it. Even Coach Saleh doesn't seem to be endorsing him anymore. Where do the Jets go from now? What's Zach Wilson's future gonna look like? And is there even a point in Aaron Rodgers returning? Before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we got all that out of the way, work! For the last month and a half, I have plugged in the same freaking ad in each and every video to remind you guys that every single time PrizePicks does this, we end up making money. The last time it was with a Steph Curry free square. This time, it's for Thanksgiving, so we have a few days to lock this in. All Christian McCaffrey needs is 1 yard, which he's gonna get a yard in order for his square to convert, which means we only need to get 1 pick right in order to 3x our money, or 2 picks right to potentially 5x our money. I'm gonna post my picks onto my Instagram at The Flight Mike, and make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone to double your deposit up to $100 when you join PrizePicks. It's worth a shot because historically we have a great win percentage on this. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We started this YouTube channel in February of 2020. Back then, at least during the 2020 to 2021 season, the New York Jets seemed to be on a one-way path to one man that could save everything for them. And that's Trevor Lawrence, who was dubbed the next coming of Patrick Mahomes. He had a lightning quick release. He was a can't-miss prospect. He was mobile as well. And him going to a large market like the New York Jets seemed to be a home run. Unfortunately, the Jets screwed everything up by beating the LA Rams. And I guess that was a great moral victory for them, but as a result, they went from being the surefire contender to get the #1 overall pick to a team that now has the #2 overall pick. During that time, I floated that the New York Jets should probably stick by Sam Darnold and address their offensive line with the 2nd overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. Either trade down, which by the way was definitely a possibility given how the San Francisco 49ers traded up to the #3 overall pick, or select Penei Sewell at the #2 overall pick, which wasn't that much of a reach back in those days. Instead, they did the same thing that every team does whenever they get a brand new head coach and a relatively new general manager. They decided to move on from Sam Darnold, who was on a rookie scale contract still, in favor for Zach Wilson. And how have the results been so far? Well, at least in regards to this year, they've been identical. Yeah, it's actually insane. I know the Adam Gase era seems to be so long ago, but comparing the Adam Gase, Sam Darnold led 2020 New York Jets to the Nathaniel Hackett / Robert Saleh / Zach Wilson led 2023 New York Jets, if you take a look at their points, their first downs, the amount of yards, and the pass yards and rush yards they were able to generate, it's more or less identical. The crazy part is the New York Jets still have the same problem. Their defense is significantly better, but they still don't have answers at the quarterback position. Well, they did, but he's currently injured, and it seems like they have another bust that they spent a premium draft pick on. Now, going into this season, the theory was very simple. You traded for Aaron Rodgers this past offseason. You have Zach Wilson, who idolized Aaron Rodgers growing up, that gets to sit back and watch this man prepare. Historically, quarterbacks that sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a number of years tend to be superstars, right? Look at Zach Wilson, for instance. Currently, he has the 2nd worst completion percentage in the NFL. The only starting QB that's worse is Jordan Love. Both Aaron Rodgers' proteges, although of course Jordan Love had significantly more time to prepare by watching Aaron Rodgers prepare. The thing that's frustrating about the New York Jets is I understand the philosophy behind their decisions, and to be honest, on paper, a lot of the decisions that they've made make a lot of sense. I would never agreed with selecting Zach Wilson at the #2 overall pick. When you already had a quarterback on a rookie scale contract, you should give him as many chances as you possibly can while addressing other areas of your team. When it comes time to pay that quarterback, if you're still not convinced that he is your QB of the future, that's when you should move on from him. All the other years leading up to them should be used towards his development and trying to make sure he's in the best place to succeed. If after 4 years you're not sold on him, then yes, you have my blessing to move on from him. In the case of the New York Jets, they didn't do that with Sam Darnold. They moved on from him after 3 years. They traded him to the Panthers, and they decided to select Zach Wilson instead, thinking that he would solve all their problems, but it was more of the same. At the same time, in my previous videos, I said that everything isn't really Zach Wilson's fault. And the original theory is, if Aaron Rodgers was at least in the building instructing Zach Wilson what to do, how to work on his game, then maybe you'll see some improvement from Zach Wilson. But unfortunately, that hasn't come to be. Zach Wilson played in his worst game of the season versus a Buffalo Bills team that featured a brand new offensive coordinator this past Sunday. This was probably the worst game of Zach Wilson's career because he was 7 of 15 and had a 3.7 QBR. I mean, in previous weeks, you would actually see Robert Saleh committing to Zach Wilson and saying he is going to be their starter.
When speaking about Zach, I get it. There's a yearning for more or whatever it is, but I feel like he played a good game yesterday. He obviously he'll admit that he'd want that interception back, but it is hard to make changes just to make changes, just to pacify something, and especially when someone's not deserving. If he was deserving of it, I got you. Like, let's change something. But and that's really for every position. That's a coach, that's a player, that's defensive play. It doesn't matter. You're always trying to look at ways to make sure that everyone is operating at full go, and to say that one person is the reason for everyone failing, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. But again, that's just one man's opinion.
But this past week was completely different. This past week, Robert Saleh seemed to have completely given up on Zach Wilson, pulling him out in the middle of the game.
Who's your quarterback moving forward?
We're gonna watch the tape and we'll make a decision tomorrow.
Possible Trevor quarterback?
We'll look at all of it. I'm not ready to answer.
The saddest part of this is Zach Wilson held himself accountable at this point, but it might be a little too late.
Yeah, frustrated, but I get it. Got to score, got to be in games. When it's consecutive weeks of just doing nothing on offense, you can sit here and say last week we moved the ball, but we're not scoring. Essentially, it comes down to you got to score points. So when things aren't getting done, changes got to be made, and I understand that.
And probably the saddest part of all is Breece Hall quite literally apologizing to New York Jets fans for how they were.
So we've been putting this on film for 10, 11 weeks or now, whatever the case may be. So, it's frustrating. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry to the Jets fans. They don't deserve this. Offense has got to be better.
You think that...
Now, here's my problem with this. I don't mind giving up on Zach Wilson. I mean, it's definitely on the table, and Lord knows you've given him so many chances. Is it all Zach Wilson's fault? No, most definitely not. Nathaniel Hackett's play calling is a little suspect there. The New York Jets have the worst offensive line in the NFL, and when you don't have a threat at the quarterback position, you can't really establish the run. If you can't even establish the run, then your defense, that is quite literally the equivalent of this meme, can't get going, and it makes a lot of sense. But the thing that really confuses me is the New York Jets have a history of making brilliant decisions, like making the first round pick that they traded for Aaron Rodgers conditional based upon how many snaps Aaron Rodgers plays this year. Brilliant. It's a second round pick now. Congratulations. But then they'll do head scratching moves like this. The trade deadline was on Halloween. Why couldn't you make up your mind on Zach Wilson a few weeks sooner? I mean, that would be a sample size of 7 games for Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. Zach Wilson has had a very Zach Wilson season so far. I mean, in week 2, he threw 3 interceptions against the Dallas Cowboys, completed 44% of his passes. He outdueled Patrick Mahomes versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and I started to have faith in him then, but he only completed 47% of his passes against the New York Giants. Like, that wasn't enough for you to realize, hey, we might want to get an insurance policy because Zach Wilson's too volatile. I mean, Josh Dobbs was available for trade. You didn't want to trade for Josh Dobbs. Joe Flacco has familiarity with the New York Jets. You didn't want to pursue him. Carson Wentz, you don't think Carson Wentz could have potentially been an upgrade over Zach Wilson? I mean, I know Carson Wentz plays a very excessive hero ball, but I think at the very minimum, he'd be an upgrade over Tim Boyle. You could have traded for a quarterback before the deadline, but you didn't. You let Mike White leave to the Miami Dolphins this past offseason. It's almost as if they were completely oblivious to this problem. And this problem reemerged in the beginning of the season. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only played 75 seconds until he tore his Achilles. At that point, the mission was clear. You need to win as many games as possible so when Aaron Rodgers returns in mid-December, there's actually a point in him rushing through an Achilles rehab to get back. I mean, the Zach Wilson game was so embarrassing. I mean, from him stumbling at the start, he got teabagged in the middle of the game. I just don't understand the philosophy of waiting this long to do this to Zach Wilson. I understand trying to make sure he's as confident as possible, but why would you wait until this point to decide, hey, that's it, the Zach Wilson experiment is done, it's clearly not working. The New York Jets are 4-6 now. They're 3 games behind the Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. They are sort of in the playoff picture, but they just have to win out. This game versus the Buffalo Bills was a must win. This week's Black Friday game versus the Miami Dolphins is a must win. Then I guess you could say that they have a winnable game against the Falcons. Not saying that the Falcons are bad, but might be a little bit more winnable than the Bills or the Dolphins. Then they face off against the Jets once again until they finish off with the Dolphins, Commanders, Browns, and the Patriots. So there's definitely a path to success here. I just felt like they were so reckless with trying to win with Zach Wilson and not having an insurance policy. And I don't know if that's Joe Douglas's fault or Robert Saleh's fault or Nathaniel Hackett's fault. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.